I've been thinking a lot about the overall market size implications as a result of this, and if the actual opportunity in front of us is going to change as a result of rescheduling. So, leaning on a bit of market data, BDSA projects that this year, 2026, the U.S. cannabis market is valued at 31.8 billion, and that by 2030, so 4 years from now, it would be 36.8 billion. So that's about a 4% compounded annual growth rate over the next few years, which is not huge, and it's certainly a smaller growth rate than we've seen over some of the years since the legalization wave started happening. And I'm wondering if you guys believe or think that there's anything about this rescheduling new reality that we're living in that's going to change the trajectory of the business opportunity with the folks that you're working with, or just that you see industry wide. Will those numbers change?
Absolutely. I think so. Again, as a resident of Washington, D.C., as you may have heard, D.C. has a lot of federal employees. DC also has a medical program. I know lots of people in the local community who have not pursued getting a medical card in DC because they're concerned about somehow that jeopardizing their employment with the federal government. If the DEA is now putting their stamp of approval on that program, I would think that changes that concern dramatically and potentially opens up the market quite a bit. And you also have to keep in mind that 280E, and I've had clients say this to me before, like, wow, 280 is so punitive. It's like they don't want me to be successful. That's exactly what they want. They don't want you to be successful. It's supposed to be punitive. It's supposed to make it very difficult for you to grow your business. So we've had a situation where illicit operators are operating without 280E. They're probably not paying payroll taxes or anything else. So they're operating at a very different cost structure than the regulated licensed market. And this is a good step forward to equalizing that. And I think when that happens, you will see more price competitiveness between the illicit market and the regulated market, and potentially more conversion of consumers into the regulated market, I hope.
You just made something pop in my head. It was like the access for like professional athletes. Like, does this act as a trigger for all the associations to allow their athletes to consume? And I know we've had a general progression in that direction, but now that you would have a federally legal category of cannabis, then potentially that opens it wide open.
Because the consumption habits of a sports team is going to change the trajectory of the industry. They're going to be consuming so much cannabis. I get it. It's the hearts and minds for sure. Gail, what are your thoughts?
I agree with what Michael said. I mean, my hopes and dreams is that somebody is going to go into a doctor's office and meet with a doctor, and the doctor themselves is going to bring up medical cannabis based on their clinical research and the fact that it might be an option. I've yet to hear a story like that, and I think that might change. I mean, that's usually how medicine works, right? It comes from the medical professionals. What I think is also interesting, is it going to make people feel more comfortable on the adult use side? I think it's, as much as I care about the medical side, and it's my reason for being in the space, it is super important to not demonize the adult use side. I feel very strongly about that. And I think that there's going to be and nor should we demonize it from a business perspective, because even though I'm excited about the opportunities for medical and it being legal and access to capital markets, et cetera, I do think there are going to be some people who just don't want to bother to get a medical certification, and they just want to walk into a store and they want to have the conversations about what they want to buy, and they should be allowed to do that in my opinion. So I'm also hoping that there's going to be some trickle down. Now, on the wholesale side, I do have some concerns about what the market's going to look like. And the big question that I have is, what is interstate commerce going to look like? And what is direct to consumer? If we go down that path, it's a very fundamental different business. It's much closer to what we're seeing on the hemp side. And I don't know the answer to that. I don't know that anybody does at this stage. But if we have interstate commerce and one state allows imports, I do have concerns to what you talked about, Anne Ray, in the beginning of the show about the cultivation side of things. If you can bring in product that's grown, around the equator or very cheaply in Africa, that I'm hearing some more about Africa being a center and not having that could be imported into our state. I think it has profound implications on cultivation. So focusing on your cost of cultivation is going to be absolutely critical to survive if that goes down like that.
Yeah, last week at the Ignite It conference on stage, a Jushi executive said basically, good luck to anyone who thinks interstate commerce is coming. And to me, that was a message and a signal that the state legal cultivation operators are going to look to protect their fiefdom, their borders as best as they can, because these cultivation assets have been incredibly expensive to build. Uh, and while I understand that kind of protectionist perspective of one's own business, I think it presents a lot of bigger questions about who we want to be and what a healthy market ultimately looks like at maturity, and runs up against some hypothesis of some other operators, namely Glasshouse, that built the biggest cultivation in the world and from the very beginning has said that their hypothesis would be that one day they would be supplying cannabis to the whole country. So it's kind of be like, well, who wins that battle and how's that going to all unfold?
Anna Ray, last week you brought up an important aspect. Is just like, does this evoke the Dormant Commerce Clause, which only relates to the interstate commerce? When it comes to international, I think I can imagine that moving a lot slower, especially under the current administration, where we are very happy to apply a tariff to international imports. So it is interesting to see the impending battle of this licensed operators fighting against the interstate commerce, though.